Do you know how many experienced outdoorsmen and women, people that are experienced hunters, hikers, survivalists, naturists, bird watchers, whatever it is that would cause and take you to go into the wilderness, do you know how many of those people die every year? Sorry, well, we never find them again, so we assume they die, right? But they go missing every year and are never found. There is literally so many people that go missing in our national forests every year. There's TV shows about it. They make TV shows about how strange and how crazy it is that these people disappear without a trace. Never seen of again. People literally find their boots. Because one of the traits of losing your mind in a survival type situation is it's found that so many of these people are found naked because they decide to start stripping off their clothes. They're not thinking rationally. And so many of these people are experienced people. Like these are people that have the right gear. So all this awesome fancy gear that you can buy on Amazon, that is in many cases really good stuff. It's great supplies for its specific purpose. But when it comes to trying to survive in the wilderness, it's useless because people literally get rid of it. As they start walking and they realize they're not fit or healthy or they're getting desperate and disorientated, they start taking things off. They start leaving their gear behind. These are rational people. So if you're there and you're listening to what I'm saying right now and you think, oh, well, that's not going to happen to me. That's exactly the kind of thinking that will get you expired. You're just not, you're not that special where you're going to survive in certain situations that other people, thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people over the course of just decades have disappeared and never came back. You have to be extremely skilled in order to survive in the wilderness. My name is Jerry. My YouTube channel is called @ChristianPreppers, and I teach a course called Urban Survival for Christians. I have dedicated a whole module to teaching people about the bugging out situation. So it's called Bug Out versus Go To or Get To. And that's the title of my course. Because when you think about bug out, it's just insanity. You're going out, you're getting isolated, all the things that are the opposite of survival. Community is the main key to survival. But when you're bugging out, the one thing is driving people who are considering bugging out is fear. They already have this fear mindset before anything's even happened. You don't even know what's going to happen. You don't know if the grid goes down and everybody in your neighborhood starts bonding together and working together and figuring out how do we get our food? How do we get supplies? Let's kind of do this together. Like you literally have no idea how it's actually going to go down. But you've already convinced yourself everyone's going to kill you. So you have to leave, you have to go. So you've already got this fear-based mindset that you're going out into the woods, and anyone that you would meet that could possibly be an ally and help you to form a community, you're going to end up being terrified of them. And if you're bumping into them in the woods, they're probably terrified of you. So you're probably mutually terrified of each other and more likely to probably hurt each other than help each other. The psychology of this fear getting literally into your DNA, it's not something that's just going to naturally evaporate when the situation actually happens. You have to think about this in advance before it actually happens so that you're community orientated, so that you don't see every single person as a threat. Will we have to, use some kind of discernment and stay away from certain people? Of course we will. Of course we can. But one thing I would say to you is trust your instincts. Trust your instincts. You've been using your instincts your whole life. And I want to ask you a question right now. How many times have you had a feeling, have you had an instinct about not doing something, about staying away from a person or not going somewhere or not doing something that was suggested to you, and you did it anyway and it turned out horrible? How many times? I'm going to suggest that virtually every time you go against your instincts, it doesn't work. Trust your instincts. It may be wrong the odd time, but for the majority of times, it's such a good bet. It's such a good bet to trust your instincts that you're probably going to come out really well. So trust your instincts. And just think about it. Being alone in the woods, if you've got a family, it's even worse. Being alone in the woods with your wife and your kids and just being exposed to the elements. What does your instincts tell you? Yes, it's not a good idea. So trust those instincts. You need a plan to be with the community. So what are some of these big reasons why bugging out is an absolutely horrific idea, and the people that allow it to get into their heads are it's just delusional. It's a delusion to think that you're going to go in the woods. Can some people do it? You know what? It's a lot less than you think. It's a lot less than you think. Even like special force trained people, survivalists, so many people that go out there, even though that some crazy aspect that they develop the skills to be able to survive in the wilderness, it's the psychology that gets them. It's their mind that will eventually let them down. Do you know that there's a pattern to people that they do find? They find their bodies, or sometimes they actually never find their bodies. They just find their clothes. They just find their boots. They find their backpacks. Like they find their supplies. They find their tents. Is because at some point when you realize you're lost, and there's like a psychosis, like there's literally like something that sets in, especially if you're short on water and short on food. Your body starts to break down, not just physically, but mentally. It starts to break down mentally. So what they find is it's a really, really common occurrence that people who get lost in the woods, they start to shed their gear. They start to leave their gear, and they even start taking off their clothes. A significant amount of people who get lost in the wilderness that are actually found, their bodies are found, they're found naked. So you're like scratching your head, like, why the heck would, especially in wintertime, why would they take their boots off and walk through the snow in their socks? Like, how does that make any sense? What you're not taking into account is that these people were not of a healthy state of mind. Being out there alone will drive you nuts. My wife and I, we love to watch this show called Alone. It's just a fun show to watch people and see how they do. So we watched the show a few years back, and it just blew our minds. There was this one guy, and his camp that he built this wee camp, and it was just like super elaborate. Like I had this system for collecting rainwater into bowls, and things were tipping and on ropes, and it was just like, wow, look at this thing. It's like Robinson Crusoe. It's like he built this little cabin thing, and we're sitting here at home thinking, wow, you could live in this thing forever. The guy was one of the first people to top out. He missed his family. He had all the food he needed. He was doing the best by far. He had been keeping himself occupied and catching fish and catching and trapping animals and eating the meat. Like a guy had been doing really amazing. And yet he topped out because mentally he couldn't do it. He couldn't handle it. People who have this bug out mentality, unless you practice and train at this, you have no idea the psychological challenges you have. Not just the physical challenges, but the psychological challenges. People just overlook the psychology of it as if it's nothing, as if, you know what, it's not going to happen to me. It happens to all these other experienced people, former military, survivalists, people that spent their entire lives in the woods, but yet go missing or never seen again, but yet that's not going to happen to me. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Here's the first thing about your bug out bag, right? Is what's your plan? Whenever people come in to my class, there's a few things that I do. And one of the things I ask them is, okay, bring in your bag. Because what I want to do is I want to weigh their bags. So that's the very first thing I want to do. Do you know that the recommended weight for a day bag for experienced hikers is not to exceed 8 pounds? It's not to exceed 8 pounds. So for an experienced hiker, someone who walks all the time in rough terrain, they recommend that the heaviest that their bag is 8 pounds. Yet when people bring in their bug out bags to me, like I have literally weighed bags weighing as much as like 48, like almost 50 pounds. So for some of these women that just keep packing these things, they can barely pick them up. Like what are they thinking? If you're one of those people in that category, what are you thinking with this bug out bag that weighs a significant percentage of your body weight? And you know what's crazy is most of those bug out bags that I'm wearing don't even include water. Water is heavy just by itself, over 8 pounds a gallon for water. So unless you know you're going to a water source, the thing that you really need to carry with you is water, and water is extremely heavy. You can't just depend that you're going to go somewhere and find water. Like, there's so much planning and resources that need to go in to actually finding yourself in some kind of a disaster, crap hitting the fan type situation. I'm going to practice editing. I'm going to see if I can edit out that plane flying over and see if I can do it. I'm excited. I'm kind of starting to learn more stuff on YouTube. So I'll see if that, hopefully there's no big pause for people who are watching this, right? If there is, I didn't figure out how to edit it just yet. So here's a couple of things. So number one, planning. Absolutely planning. You have no idea how the elements will just expire you unbelievably quickly. It'll just take the life right from you. So you've got to have a plan. Most people have no idea what that plan even is, because it's all fear. It's just all we have to do is get out. So I've got this go bag because this is what this guy recommended on YouTube. So I put these supplies in it because these are what he recommended, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab this bag and I'm going to get out of here. That's great. That literally is the extent of the plan for many people. They literally don't even know where they're going. They don't even know they're bug out. They don't even know if they can even get to that area because they have no idea, will the roads even be gridlocked? So the roads could be completely gridlocked and you might not even be able to get to the initial part where you're going to leave your car and start walking anyway. Most people really do believe there's a complacency about it. There's a massive complacency. One of the things I've learned from teaching my class is that there's such a massive complacency when it comes to people thinking they're grabbing their bug out bag and somehow they're just going to make it. God, especially Christians. I teach urban survival for Christians, so I'm assuming the majority of people that take my course are professing Christian people, and I hear so many times people saying, God's going to guide me, like He's going to protect me. So let's say that the creator of the universe invented this thing called a brain, and then also inspires this thing called the Bible that's full of all of these instructions. Basic instructions before leaving Earth is what a lot of people will say the acronyms are, right? So basic instructions for being here. And yet people think that just their simple prayer will override the fact that God gave you the ability to have a brain and preservation instincts, and then gives you a book full of guidance, and then puts people around you, like right now me, that's telling you it's a crazy idea. It's a crazy idea. Do you know how far you can walk? Whenever for somebody that's in the military, and I remember in basic training getting the boots, and you get these brand new boots, you've got to start breaking them in. One of the biggest things that they teach you is how to take care of your feet, because your feet are so important. You can't march, you're pretty much useless. So right out the gate, there's this emphasis on taking care of your feet, making sure that you can keep walking. And is this something that you have considered? Have you considered how to take care of your feet? What the right shoes are? How are you going to bug out? Are you just bugging out and you're just the everyday shoes that you wear? Do they have adequate ankle support? Are you going to step over the first log and sprain an ankle and then you're done? This literally is why some people expire in the wilderness, is because they can't move anymore. They can't travel. So therefore they're stuck in the wilderness, and now they're exposed to the elements and they essentially die of exposure. A massive amount of the people who get lost in the wilderness die of exposure. They don't die of thirst, and they don't die of lack of food, starvation. The first thing that gets them is exposure. So have you put thought into that? Have you put thought into, first of all, how do I even protect my feet? What shoes am I going to wear? Do I have those shoes as part of my gear, or am I just hoping that it just so happens to happen on the day where I'm wearing those shoes? Have you even worn those shoes? Are they broken in? The last thing you want to be doing is doing a trek. So what I teach in my course is you need to be prepared to walk 50 miles. That's what I teach in my course. I feel like if a person is trained and learned how to be able to walk 50 miles, then they've covered multiple things. Because a 50 mile, even for an experienced hiker, 50 miles could take you across rough terrain, could take you 4 to 5 days. So if you're not an experienced hiker, it's going to take you a much longer period of time than that. You might only be able to make it like 3 miles a day, because your pace drops off significantly as you get tired and fatigued. You add injury to that, and now you're talking about like virtually no movement. You're hardly making any gains whatsoever. What you're really doing is you're just literally surviving long enough to put yourself in the deepest, furthest part from help that you could possibly get. Feet are massive. So to me, one of the very first things that you need to consider in a bug out situation is feet. And I'm kind of getting ahead of myself a wee bit. It shouldn't be considered bug out. It's get to or go to. That's the title of my course: get to or go to. So you're not trying to bug out to go and live in the wilderness somewhere because you're going to expire. Living will not be part of that future. But if you even think you're calling it your go-to bag, so your go-to bag or your get-to bag, the purpose of that bag is not for you to become a survivalist in the wilderness. The purpose of that bag is to have enough supplies to get you to the destination that you've already predetermined that is in your plan. So your plan is to get there. And these are the supplies that you need to get there. Now, what you're hoping is, in best case scenario, that you're able to drive there. That's awesome. So you're able to drive there. I mean, the actual ultimate best case scenario is you never have to leave your house at all, right? Because you've got so much supplies right there. But I'm talking about a scenario where you do have to move. There's some imminent danger. You've conducted a threat assessment. Whatever triggers that are in your threat assessment that is triggering your evacuation plan, all those triggers have been actuated, and now you're out of here. You're gone. So the best case scenario is you get in your car and you go. And that's what most people really do think. So even though they've got their bug out bag, they really do think they're probably going to drive there. So they've got the backpack. It's for snacks. It's got all this other fancy gear that you paid a small fortune for on Amazon, but really what it is your snack bag. That's the way most people actually think about it. They have not put any serious thought into it at all. So if you're thinking that you live in an area that could experience serious gridlock, or there's bridges or something that could be taken out, and you're going to have to walk, you're going to have to be on foot, and especially if you've got a wife and children, okay, everybody's feet should be literally your first line of preparation is everybody's feet. Because even if you get yourself in some extreme weather, you need to be able to walk out of it. You might have to walk out of it. If you can learn how to survive in it, that's great. But for most people, it's trying to get out of the situation is going to be the best case scenario. When you can't get out of that situation, you have to have skills to know how to make a shelter. You're going to have skills to know how to make fire, to get water, to get food. If it's going to be a prolonged period of time, you have to have those skills. But ultimately what you're trying to do is making sure you're not getting stuck somewhere that can put you at risk. So your shoes are really, really important. And I kind of touched on a little bit about, for instance, like how far you can walk. If you're experienced versus not experienced, what pace do you even want? Do you know how fast you walk? And if you've practiced on pavement, have you then tried that in terrain? Where you've practiced and timed yourself, how much ground did you cover? For the average hiker, they do anywhere between 3 to 5 miles an hour. 3 miles is right around a good experience. If you get like these power walker guys or whatever the case is, then they can go a wee bit faster. But 3 miles per hour is about your average for decent hikers, for people who are used to hiking. But here's the thing is, after several hours, that actually starts to taper off. So a person's pace will start to slow down. So if you're walking for 7-8 hours, you might do 3 miles for the first 3 miles per hour for the first 2-3 miles. And then after that, it's going to slightly taper off, taper off, taper off. Do you know your endurance level? If you're really thinking this, you got to practice it, right? You got to put it into practice. And here's what I'm asking. I'm asking that you do some of these things that I say, because then you're going to realize how in trouble you will be if you have to depend on that. So that would be the point of this exercise. I do think you should practice. I do think you should walk. So I do think you should get better and you should get stronger. But as you do that, it's going to reveal to you, you need to have a solid plan. You need to have a place to go to. You need to have alternates. You should almost depend that the first 1, 2, 3 plans are going to fail, and you need the fourth or the fifth. Because if it's a high stress situation and people are panicking, how many people are trying to do the same thing as you're doing? Like I said, is it going to be gridlocked? Do you have to get out of your car? Do you have to start walking? Are you a woman alone trying to get home? Is that your first stage? Is it just going to conveniently happen when you're at home with your whole family? Or is it more likely to happen when you're, say, I don't know, at work, 15, 20 miles away from home? Where you might be walking home? If you're a woman and you're traveling in a situation like that, then how do you even know? Can you talk to anybody? So I've said it before in previous videos. If you're a woman walking alone, the very first thing you're going to do is look for a family. Look for a woman, a dad, and a couple of kids, or a kid. And then what you do is you approach the woman and you say, can I walk with you? I'm trying to get home to my kids. And that woman will more than likely adopt you. And now you're walking with a family. You have an instant little community. And not only do they want to get safe, they want to get you to your kids. There's simple things that we can do that will help us and bless us. But trying to go into the woods is not going to work. So how do your feet work? How good are your feet? How good is your fitness level? How good is your endurance? Could you literally climb over a log if you needed to? Could you get down an embankment safely and cross a river? Do you know how to do any of this stuff? Even if you're going to practice this stuff, do you know how much danger you're in just even practicing this stuff? The fact that you have to make sure, you have to go through all this where you have to make sure people know what your plan was, like where you're going, what time you're expected back. Like there's a reason why they require, like the National Forestry Service recommend that you do all these things. It's because so many people could be saved had they done that. You're going into an environment that at times will feel like it was literally designed to take your life. Just absolutely insanity to think that you're going to go out there and survive in the wilderness. Do you know how to build a decent shelter? Do you have any kind of equipment? Do you know how to layer your clothing? Do you know how to try to keep your clothing dry? Keep your socks dry. Change your socks out. Keep the cushioning on your feet, making sure you're not getting trench foot. Do you know how to do this? Do you know how to treat a corn or a bunion of some kind? Or blisters? Do you know how to treat those things where you can still keep walking? Do you have any of that gear or supplies in your backpack? There's so much that goes into it that people just have no idea. The weight. When I come in and I have this, and I ask people that bring their go bags in, the state of them bringing the bags in is ridiculous. And then when I ask them to put the backpack on, half of these women can't even put the backpack on. Because the thing is ridiculous. It weighs way too much. So I'm not even going to try to really get into the supplies that's in it, because it's kind of almost pointless. What you're doing is you're assessing, in my opinion, what you have to assess is, I need to plan for the worst case scenario, that I'm like 50 miles away from home and I can't use my car. So whatever happened or whatever took place, my car is not usable. So I have to get home, and it's going to take me 5, 6, 7 days to get home. How can I survive a night? The biggest bug-out bags that you can find are usually rated for only 72 hours. There may be some extreme stuff out there, if you can afford the really, really lightweight gear, that maybe you can go 5 days. But even within 5 days, that's a big deal for water. Like you could be talking about trying to carry 40 pounds of water alone and still be risking dehydration. It's a big proposition. So I'm hoping you really think about this. You really think about what it would do to travel. How good are your feet? How good is your endurance, your fitness level? You know, where is the worst case scenario that you might be for this to happen? And then what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get home? If you're a mom, are you trying to get home first, or are you planning on going to the school first to maybe pick up your kids? Or maybe meet up, rendezvous with a parent? Have you considered any of this? Have you even had this conversation with your kids? If something was to happen and the grid is down, the power is out, and you can't get there to pick your kids up, do your kids know where to go? Do you know how to leave messages for each other that don't necessarily alert everybody else where you're going to be or where your kids are going to be, but something that you guys understand? You know, something as simple as like going to grandma's house. You know, a stranger who's trying to track you guys down might have no idea where grandma's house is, but you guys know exactly where it is. It could be simple. It could be something as simple as that, you know? Or, hey, you know, have the plans. We're going to follow plan A. It could literally be as simple as that. We're going to follow plan A. And you guys have all talked in your family what plan A is. So you know what plan A is, plan B, plan C. So you just basically start leaving, you know, notes or chalk or Sharpie or, you know, certain points where you're going to leave messages for each other. And you simply say what plan you're going to be following. And then that way people know where to rendezvous. They know where to meet. They know where your ultimate goal is. And that's something you need to have. You can have you have to have an alternate, but you can have a plan to meet up somewhere that kind of gets you out of the city, where it gets you this rendezvous point, what gets you out ahead of the traffic, ahead of the chaos, ahead of the masses, the horde that's going to be leaving at some point if you get enough of a trigger warning. So that's another module in my course is triggers. When do you go? When do you stay? The last thing you want to do is leave your safe home and put yourself at risk going somewhere unless you absolutely have to. So you want to learn, you want to understand what are those triggers, what are those scenarios that even cause you to move, and have talked about those in advance. So whatever gear you've got, that's great, you know, but if you don't have somewhere that you're getting to in a relatively quick period of time, okay, you're going to be in trouble. So start planning it. If you've got this in your head, start doing it. Go out, hike, eat the food that you normally food. So many of these people that I talk to, they've got like their MREs, and it's like, well, how often do you eat MREs? It's like, oh, well, I never eat MREs. I just buy this stuff. It's expensive, and I just have my go bag. Those things are like loaded with sodium. There's so many other people in the military that will tell you, you eat an MRE, you're not going to the bathroom for like 3 days. Some people even believe that it's done on purpose so that if you find yourself in combat where you're eating an MRE, you don't have to go to the toilet. But if you start eating all this survival food, which so much of it is just loaded with salt, what effect is this going to have on your body? What effect is this going to have on your hydration? So you need to eat. You need to eat food that you normally eat. You need to figure out ways, you know, and start eating. Like if there's good protein bars out there that you like, then start eating them occasionally. Get your body used to them. Find out if you like them or not. Find out how your body deals with them, so that you've got this preparation to know if you do have to travel over any kind of distance, your body is used to what you're about to go through. That you're not all of a sudden putting all this new stuff into your body and then trying to metabolize it and then keep walking. So there's so many things that you can do. I'm going to end this video. I've got some more coming, but I hope this video was something that will stimulate the thought process, help you understand that trying to go somewhere, just the weight of the water alone is going to be ridiculous if you're trying to walk through any kind of an area that doesn't have a good, fresh, clean water supply. You don't want to be just drinking dirty water and hoping you're going to be okay. You're going to get diarrhea, and it's going to dehydrate you even more, if not getting, you know, some other, you know, pathogen or sickness from drinking dirty water. So let me know what you think. I'm asking, do you believe that you're okay, that you could take your backpack? I want to find out how many people out there really believe that they can take their backpack and they're going to be okay surviving in the woods. So please leave a comment. Let me know what you think of this this video, and just just community. Got to build a community. Do it now. Don't why wait? Do it now.